Group 287 really is the second group to start their nursing training in 1987 at the Royal Melbourne Hospital. There were 3 groups a year, so we were the June-July group, hence the 2 designation, and 87 just referred to the year.
Coming from the country was a good opportunity to move away and broaden your horizons a little bit.
And when I received that letter, I was ecstatic. It was really all I wanted at that point in time.
I'd only ever heard fantastic things, and that's where the best nurses came out of. So I went thinking, fantastic, I've got into one of the best places to train as a nurse.
Well, we all moved into the nurses' residence on the Sunday afternoon, and we all met downstairs and we got to know each other, and we had a practice trial run of putting on our uniform, which is the big starched apron. And then the following day we had our first day of PTS training, which was preliminary training school.
You learn how to feed patients, you learn how to wash patients, you learn how to give injections there. So you had oranges and you had to inject an orange because it was to get the feel of how hard you actually had to push a needle in. How to make a bed, which was exceptionally important in those days, that you got your corners right. Really, PTS was about how do you actually provide basic nursing care for patients.
I don't remember feeling afraid at that time, because I think already you had a sense that there were a lot of people coming together, and you just appeared already to kind of have a sense that you were cohesive.
I think the relationship worked both ways. Basically, we were getting an education. At the same time, we were providing them with a workforce. But it was a mutual relationship, and it was sort of like a win-win situation.
Study blocks, and you had practical rotations as well. So your study blocks might have been 4 or 6 weeks, a fairly intense study.
And then we'd have an exam at the end of it. So by the end of the 3rd or the 5th week, we were getting a bit stressed. Everyone was sort of staying in the nursing home and study their butts off, because we knew if you failed, you're out.
It was sometimes very confronting, the things that you faced, but again I think that added to the experience and your ability to cope in difficult situations.
On that first day, absolutely petrified, because you were going in to do some basic care on people who are actually in hospital and sick.
We were only 18 years old, and there I was sort of, on this burns ward and holding burnt limbs up while other people dress them, and I remember just thinking, what am I doing here?
There was obviously a lot of sick people and a lot going on, so you were pretty new to all of that, and you really were, very aware of your lack of knowledge.
That, it's a big shock to the system at that age, and I don't know if I was really prepared for it. And I remember an older lady, I was doing a blood pressure on her, and she asked me, how was my blood pressure? And I told her what it was, and she said, is that good? And I thought, I don't know if it's good or not, because we were still so new to the job.
The patient was strict rest in bed. The charge nurse had said that patient is not to get out of bed for anything, and you followed those orders. There were reasons why people couldn't get out of bed, but so the male patient said, I need to go to the toilet, I need to get out of bed, and the nurse said, I'm really sorry, you can't get out of bed. And he said, I'm not using a pan, I've got to get out of bed. So she came up and she was thinking, and the patient was adamant, and you have to try and look after your patient as well. So we walked into the room and you could see the patient's head above the curtains. The patient was on the commode chair on the bed. And I'm not joking. But they're the kinds of things that you take literally what you're told and you come up with ways that you can try and fix them.
But I do know that as hospital trained nurses, we had to learn very quickly basic nursing care, because we had 8 patients. The ratio back then was 1:8, not 1:4.
You did really find your feet, and the first year you didn't. Often you were really feeling like you knew so little, and you were very aware of that. And the expectation that you felt on yourself that you should know more, and why do I have to ask this for the 3rd time running, but I just have to.
You were doing full shifts, a proper working roster right from the start.
You had night shifts, you had short shifts where you might finish at 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night, and then you'd have to return at 7 o'clock the next morning. That was pretty physically and emotionally exhausting.
We were dealing with, death and dying at the age of 18, and, you've got relatives there, and, you're learning to talk to people about things like that at a really young age.
There were days that you'd rather forget, but on the whole, we generally just took it in our stride and accepted that that was the part of training and part of being a student nurse.
For 3 years, the student nurses of Group 287 lived, worked and laughed together. Then they went their separate ways. In 2007, Group 287 held their 20th reunion party at the Royal Melbourne Hospital. For many, it was a chance to catch up with old friends and to recapture a moment in time.
This was really an opportunity for us to share what may have happened to us since we'd finished our training, to share the memories of when we did go through our training. You become quite close. You're living, you're studying and you're working with the same group for 3 years. So you have a really quite unique bond. The experiences that you've shared throughout a lot of that time. So the reunion was very much about bringing that together so that we could share, we could reminisce about those times, we could laugh, lots of laughs about things that we experienced back then.
We got about 75% of our old nurses there. Some of them we hadn't seen for, in fact, 19 years, but it was just like stepping back in time.
It was just fantastic getting together again, and everyone is, really friendly, and it was just, I feel friends for life.
And also to have a look at the Royal Melbourne now, because many of us hadn't been back there for maybe 15 years. So, it was good to have a tour of the hospital as well.
So I think we all had these amazing memories of our time together, and it was fantastic just to see that people are still the same. In fact, I don't feel my age, and I don't think any of they did. We all still had those amazing memories of that friendship that we had together.
I found it quite therapeutic. It enabled me to reflect on what the value was of my nursing training and how much of an impact that's made on me for the rest of my life. And I think outside of being a parent, nursing has been the most life-affirming experience, I think. Just those lifelong skills that we learned throughout our training that have taken us into the rest of our lives, both in work and family and social situations as well. And I'm really confident that what we learned back then was the best grounding for any type of acute care nursing that you might experience.
I think what it did basically do when you train like that is you find out whether you want to be a nurse or not very quickly. Unfortunately, some of the nurses out of the universities at the moment don't get that opportunity until they've done a 3-year degree. I think we were really lucky in that sense to work out whether nursing is what we wanted to do or not.
I do think that a lot more work and training within the hospitals would be good for nurses. Still get their education through the university system, but a lot more work within the hospital system would help them out. They're the ones that would be thrown in, feel unsupported, I imagine, because they really hadn't had a lot of work in the hospitals through their training.
No, I think that nursing as a profession had to go down the path that it has, in the sense that nurses do get a degree, they're professional, you have that piece of paper, and so they should. I mean, they've got amazing wealth of knowledge, and it's great to see them being recognised professionally.